Well, I went and spent some money I shouldn't have. Moving up in the world, guys. 8-row planter. It's an Oliver 543. Don't mind the white on the boxes. It's one of the last ones built, so it's got white stickers on it, but it's got Oliver stickers on it too. And this box has been replaced. It should have all white boxes on it like that. Found it on Craigslist up by, came from Riverdale, Michigan. It's about 50-ish miles northeast of Grand Rapids as the crow flies. Went and picked it up this morning. I actually bought it 2 months ago, but it just now got time because about the time I finished up planting, they started planting up there, so it took a little while for me and the guy I bought it from for both of our schedules to meet up where I could go get it. So he was asking 12 for it. I offered him 8 and he took it. And I really need an 8-row planter, like I needed a hole in the head, but this thing had 2 options on it that are very, very rare and make it a little bit more desirable for me. First off is this springtime bar. Basically, these things are kind of supposed to act a little bit like a row cleaner, just kind of flick the trash out of the way. But what they're going to allow me to do is they'll act kind of like track eliminators. Because for an 8-row planter, I'm still going to plant with the 1800 because this thing, it don't weigh shit. You load it with fertilizer to get a little heavy, but it's nothing like, say, a 5100 white. It's still light, so horsepower won't be an issue. It'll just need a little bit more traction on some of the hills. So these will allow me to run duals, because the way that thing's set up now, it'll straddle 30s, but if you put duals on it, the dual is going to be right smack in the center of that row. So what this will do is eliminate that track. And the other thing it'll let me do is now I'm limited because I have to work ground right in front of the planter. That way I can plant into fresh work ground. Normally, if you work ground and it gets rained on or something and gets a little bit of a crust on it, you go back and rework it. Well, what this will allow me to do is I can work a bunch of ground ahead of the planter, and then even if it gets rained on and gets a little bit of a crust on it, I can still plant into it, because these things will basically act like a coil tying cultivator and go in and just bust the crust up. So that's going to make life easier. And then the other thing is this planter's got gauge wheels. I have only ever seen these in pictures. I knew they offered as an option. There was an option on my 542. But I've never actually been able to find a planter, and I've never actually been able to find enough parts to put gauge wheels on my 540. And on that planter, your packer wheel sets your depth, which it isn't for shit, because you get a high spot, it comes through, your seed ends up down further than where you want it, and then you get ahead of the high spot. After the packer wheel rolls up on it, it picks the coulter up out of the ground, and your seed up here is shallow. So deep, shallow, or shallow, deep, or however the high spot ends up going through the planter. So what these do is they're right in line with the seed, or with the drop tube. So when a high spot, or when a row unit goes over a high spot, it picks the row unit up at the high spot, and then the packer wheel is just spring loaded, so it's just tamping the ground back down behind it. So, and it's all adjustable, although the adjustment's froze up. It shouldn't be. There's a couple, that one's good. There's a couple tires across here that are tore, but they should be the same as an 8-inch cultivator tire, which should still be available. Oh, it's got writing on it. I didn't see that. 4 by 10.5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Shoop still got these available. Manufactured by the Ohio Rubber Company, 4x10.5. Soil King. That's cool. But, that was the biggest reason I wanted this. Because I love that 540. It's good. It's accurate. For a plate planter, it's accurate as hell. But the biggest issue I have with it, and especially in this year it really showed, is in a dry year I'd have emergence issues because you'd be going, the low spots would come up, or the spots where it was planted at the right depth would come up fine, but you get into some uneven ground and it'd come up funny. This should eliminate that, and it should also help to close the seed trench and improve the seed soil contact. And the other thing that was an option on these was a little, I'd say it was a 6-inch or so firming wheel, about, I don't know, maybe an inch or so wide, and it probably wasn't even that wide. They're little dinks. And that's what this is for, is that was the axle for it. And it was just a little spring-loaded wheel that rode back here and pushed right on the center of the seed trench to make sure that the seed was all the way down in the bottom of the trench before the packer wheel ran over it. So I have the option, because this has the mounting bracket for it, and I'm pretty sure that they used those same that little wheel was the same one as the tripod closing wheel set up on the back of a white 5100. So if I can come up with some of those wheels, I should be able to make those up and stick in here so that I have that added precision, I guess you'd call it, if you want to call anything on these planters precise. So that, or I'm also considering putting some seed firmers on it, which either one will do the same exact thing. It just matters on which one's cheaper. For all intents and purposes, that little wheel would probably be cheaper, because if I was going to put seed firmers on it, they'd probably be Keatons. I'd probably have to make my own brackets, but I think it'd be cool. 40-something-year-old planter with brand new Keaton seed firmers on it. So those two things were the biggest. Well, that and the fact that it's an 8-row Oliver planter, which they didn't make hardly any of. I've only ever seen one other one of these come up for sale, and it was up in that same area. The center of Michigan all the way over to the thumb was a big Oliver area for some reason. Well, they had 3 huge dealers up there back in the day. So you find a lot of off-the-wall Oliver stuff up there, this being one of them. So I've seen this one other 543 up there, 8-row. And then probably 5 or so years ago, there was a guy who had a 343, which was a semi-mounted toolbar. Same row unit, it was just a toolbar that you had basically like a semi-mounted plow. You hooked your lower links in the front and then end, and a lift assist wheel in the back, and it was semi-mounted planter basically. I wish I would have bought that one, but at that time I didn't have a tractor big enough to pull it, and I was still planting wide row, so it wouldn't have done me any good anyway. But that kind of would have been cool, because there's none of those around. I mean, a 543 8-row is rare enough. A 343, I'd say you could probably count the number of those left on your hands and toes. But so I was swayed a little bit by the cool factor. But she is going to need some love. Oh, it's also got the cross auger for filling all the fertilizer hoppers off of one end, which is going to come in handy, especially with that fertilizer, or the auger wagon I'm putting together to haul fertilizer, because I can run my hydraulic lines right out here, put a set of quick couplers here with a T to run up to here, plug my wagon in here, and run everything from right here, fill the whole box. Which, the other thing that's nice about that fertilizer wagon is because this thing's going to be hungry. But by all rights, I should also only have to fill half as many times, since I'm planting twice as fast. So are covering twice the amount of ground in the same pass, so it might come out in a wash. But shoveling into a 2-row planter is one thing. Shoveling into a 4 or an 8-row, or shoveling into a 4-row planter is one thing. Shoveling into an 8-row, yeah, I'm not doing that. But she is gonna need some love. Pretty much, well, all the disc openers are shot. The hubs in every one of the fertilizer boxes is junk. That fertilizer box is broke. But the guy had, and what I call hub is these castings that are there in here. Yeah. Let's see if I can. Whoops. Those. Lids are shot on this thing anyway. They're all hard and brittle. So those are all shot, but he had 4 brand new ones for it. And I've got those 2 543 parts planters up there, and I'm pretty sure the Oliver has good ones in it. So there's another 4. And I also know the nice thing and the ironic thing about all this is, right before school got out, I found out that one of my friends from college, his older brother works at a dealer down in Illinois, and they used to be a big Oliver dealer. Turns out they still have a whole room full of NOS Oliver parts, and they have a whole aisle. And I bet them pigeonholes are, well, I couldn't reach the top one. I had to climb the shelves to get to it, but I bet they're easily 10 foot tall, and I bet that aisle's 35, 40 feet long, just planter parts, one end to the other, and they're all 540, 543, 5400 white, so every one of them parts will fit this thing. NOS, clutches, hubs, bearings, you name it. Basically, if I had a frame, I could build a planter. And they've also got a barn down there full of a bunch of parts, but I didn't get a chance to go through that. And I'm not telling anybody where this is at because it's my little secret for now. Actually, I bought most of the parts out of there already. I just got to go get them. So, wouldn't do anybody any good to know where it's at anyway, because all the parts are mine. But, so between all that stuff I'm getting from down there and them 2 543 parts planters that are up there, I basically have enough parts to make this thing new again. And the disc openers are no big deal. They're standard 13 and a half inch, I think is what they are. Disc openers, which Shoop has brand new for, I think, like 13 bucks a piece last time I looked. This thing needs 16, 30, needs 32 of them. So it's like 400 bucks, somewhere in there, so not too bad. Basically, I figure if I put about 1,500, 1,600 bucks into it, she'll go to the field. I'm gonna put all new tires on it. It came as there's an Alice Chalmers cylinder laying over there in the yard. I had a spare Oliver one laying around, not because I didn't want that cylinder on there, but because I didn't trust the hydraulic oil that was in it, and I just rebuilt this one, so I threw that on there because I knew it had good hydraulic oil in it. I'm going to have to hunt down a set of fertilizer augers for it, and I'm going to have to, I know where there's 6 good Packer wheels sitting in the junkyard, and I'm pretty sure they match the ones I took off my 540, and that one only had 1 bad Packer wheel on it. All the other ones were still runnable, but I had 4 basically brand new ones I got off of that Oliver 543 parts planter. So I put all those on there so they all match, because the ones that were on that planter didn't have the center rib, but they had the chevrons on it, and the ones I put on it are smooth, so I wanted them all to match. But I'm pretty sure them ones over in the junkyard, I'm pretty sure they're just a chevron. I know they're treaded, but I don't think they have that little ridge in there, so I think they're just a chevron. So I'll probably put those across the back. I gotta pull the seed boxes apart, get the bottom sandblasted, and probably shoot some primer on them and throw them back together. Ain't no use throwing paint on there because it's just gonna rub off anyway, and primer's not as sticky for the seed. And the other thing we're gonna have to do is it's set up on 28-inch rows, which that little oddball, but he also, all this thing ever planted, as far as we know, was dry beans, so like kidney beans, navy beans, stuff like that. So that's probably got something to do with the way it's equipped and the row spacing. But some jackwad that owned it before, when they got it all narrowed up where they wanted it, whacked the frame off. So in order to, we need 2 more inches per row, so 16 inches. So I don't have enough frame to widen it all the way out. So basically what we're going to have to do is we're going to take that white 543 up there, which is basically junk. There's basically not a good part left on it except for the lift rigging and some row unit drive part. Well, the row units on it aren't terrible, but basically everything, that planter's just, yeah, she's whooped. There ain't no fix to it, but what we're going to do is cut chunks of the frame off of that and weld back on here to get the frame back out where it belongs, which, I mean, that's good, heavy, thick box tube, so you go in there and you gouge out a good 45 and lay in a good 1/2 inch wide bead of weld in there, grind it off, paint it. You'd never know that if, well, other than the fact that it wouldn't be rusty, you'd never know the difference. And I also know, same buddy from school that his brother works at the dealership, his dad has a set of factory Oliver folding marker arms, because he planted 8 row, but what he did was he pulled 2 540s on a squadron hitch, so he pulled 2 4 rows on a tandem hitch to make 8 rows, and he had folding marker arms on his, which is, and unfortunately all the planters and the squadron hitch are gone, but he still got the marker arms for some reason. So I'm gonna see, well, I know he'll want to get rid of them. He's got no reason to keep them. So I'm probably gonna try to get those from him, because these marker arms, as you can tell, are not the straightest anymore. I can fix them, there ain't nothing to them, but it'd be nice to put them folding ones on there, because they won't be, that's probably at least 12 foot tall right there. I'm gonna have to take them down to stick this thing in the barn. So I'm gonna try to get those, and may have to fabricable some brackets because they were made for a 540. So I don't exactly know how they attach, but they'll still be factory marker arms. The brackets will just be homemade, which it's not like we don't have the capacity to machine them. And if any of the guys, I know there's a bunch of guys that watch this channel that were around back in the 70s and 80s, will probably recognize the fact that this is end toe and have a bunch of bad comments about that. But to tell you the truth, it wasn't for the fact that I got a couple narrow gates I gotta get through, I wouldn't even put it in end toe. I'd just pull it down the road normal. And it would only be 20 foot wide. That ain't shit. There's guys haul wider stuff than that down the road nowadays. But that's basically what I went off and did, so you guys will be seeing more of this here in the near future. The biggest thing it suffered from was, I think it, at least with the last owner, it spent its life outside. He didn't have much that sat inside except for his tractors and his combines. Everything else was sitting outside, and even some of his tractors were sitting outside, so that's probably what led to it being in the condition it's in. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to do to it is, I don't like the way they got that auger mounted, bolted right to the boxes, because these planters are real freaking easy to clean out. You just go through and there's 2 bolts on every box you pull out, and they flip down so that It's nice, wide open, and right, you can just pick them up and off if you need to clean them out. Normally I just lay them down and blow them out with a power washer and dump used motor oil in there, but with that thing mounted to them, you can't do that. And every other cross auger I've ever seen on a tractor or on a planter, they come down between every box and they've got a bracket with a hinge so that you can lay that thing forward so it's over the boxes, and then when you go to clean out, or if you don't want to use it, you can lean it back out of the way. So that's what I'm going to do to that, is put it on some stands and on some hinges so that I can flip it back, so it makes it easier to clean out. And I've got more freaking parts than I know what to do with. I'm pretty sure I got 4 boxes. I know I got a bunch of seed boxes, because I was collecting them for a different planter project, but I think they're all going to go towards this planter project now. Which most of these boxes aren't too bad. There's one, or, you know, that one's got a hole in it. That might actually be the only one that's screwed up. But I got enough boxes to replace whatever's broke. I got it. That Oliver 543 had a really, really nice, super sweet set of boxes on it, because the planter sat outside, but he took the seed boxes off and set them in he had a old grain bin he used for basically a junk catch, and he had those in there, so they never saw sunlight, so those things are immaculate. So those will probably end up going on here. And I've got a bunch of other boxes over there. So yeah, fixing it should not be a problem. All the parts I basically already know where they're at. I just got to get them. But I think this thing's probably going to live outside for another week or so, because I'm probably going to leave it here so I could bring it down. And the first thing I want to do is get the power washer and blow all the ugly off, because giving it a bath will help tremendously. And then I'm going to go through and get a list of the stuff that I need to look for. Although I basically know the hardest thing to locate is going to be the fertilizer augers, which I could probably, there's really only one that I have to replace, and it is this one, because the auger's busted right here. But you can see they're kind of, didn't get cleaned, so they're kind of flaky. So I mean, if I absolutely have to, I can run them, but I'd like to find a better set. I just have to sandblast these things. It came with a bunch of sprockets. These are all new. Those might be used. But it's got 2 new clutches. I know that the planter parts I'm getting from that dealer, there's a bunch of new clutches there, so I'm probably going to go through and put all new clutches on it. But it's got 2 new ones on it already. But all these are the bushings for the drive shaft that runs underneath the axle that goes down to all the row units. And these are the new hubs for the boxes, and it came with a set of mini boxes too. And basically what he told me those were for is apparently for planting pickles. I don't know about that. I know there's something, my 540 manual mentions these little boxes, but I can't remember what it says it's for. So I'm going to have to go read, or go do some reading, and just because I'm curious. But you can't plant anything else with them because they got this little dinky teeny tiny seed hole coming out the bottom. And it came with some other parts too, but they were all shit, so I threw them in a scrap hopper already. And this is the cylinder that was on it. It's a factory AC cylinder. I got no use for it, so if there's any Alice guys that watch this that are interested in it, $40, it's yours. It don't leak. Actually, the it might have been rebuilt at some point because the rod seal in it looks almost new, or the rod wiper, but the hoses are shot, so I'll pull those off and drain the cylinder before if anybody's interested in it. Otherwise, we got some friends that collect Alice over in next town over. I'll probably see if I know they'll want it. But yeah, that's probably enough rambling for now, because you're going to be seeing a lot more of this probably this fall, if not later this summer. It's definitely gonna be in the field next year. One come hell or high water, I'm gonna have it in the field next year. Cause that's planting 8 rows at a time is gonna make life a whole lot easier. And don't worry about the 540, she's not going nowhere. I'm actually half tempted, especially after this year. I had a real problem with emergence on beans because that drill has a hard time getting them in the ground when it's dry like this, because it doesn't have press wheels and the springs on it just don't have enough ass to push the coulters in the ground. But I'm seriously considering going to 30-inch row beans. I'm going to see what these beans do, and if they get bushy, I think I might do it. I'm going to take a yield hit on them, but it won't be a big one. Normally it's only about 5 bushel, which, I mean, it's not great, but for them first choice beans are so stinking cheap. You can afford to lose 5 bushel and you'll still make the same money as if you were. But there's some other guys around here that plant 30 inchers and they seem to have pretty good luck with them. You just got to be Johnny on the spot with weed control. They don't canopy, they don't ever canopy out. They get close, but they can't fill in about that center 4 or 5 inches. Unless you get a really, really, really bushy bean, but we can't get long enough season up here to get that kind of bean. But if I do, that's what the 540 is going to be doing. I'm probably going to park the drill, keep that for wheat, and plant beans with the 540. And one more thing about this is it has all the hubs in it to run John Deere plastic plates, which makes life a whole lot easier. Because I don't have enough plates for 8. If it was only a 6 row, I'd have more than enough plates for it. But it's an 8 row, I don't have enough plates for it. So I'm going to have to hunt me down a couple, probably 3 sets of John Deere medium round planter plates for it. Which won't be a problem because those things are a dime a dozen. You can go in just about any barn anywhere and find those. But anywho, go ahead and get this crap put up. Go in the house, take a break. It's been hotter than Billy Hill today, and I spent 8 hours on the road. So anyway, I guess that's enough of me rambling for now. You'll see more of it later. I guess that does it for this one, and we will catch you guys tomorrow baling hay.